Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Grace Church. My name is Aaron, and today we have a special guest. His name is Shawn. We've been friends for over 20 years, to the point where I can't even remember, and he can't remember how we met, when we met, but we've been friends and co-laborers in ministry. He is one of my favorite storytellers, and in fact, I encourage you to go buy his book. And he's gonna talk about that book. I read it over vacation. It was incredible. So please enjoy this incredible message from Shawn Small.
In the third grade at Roberge Elementary School, if Miss Simmons was your teacher, you hit the lottery. Miss Simmons was the most grandmotherly of the teachers. She had the best treats. She was known for her kindness. But the thing that Miss Simmons was legendary for was Exchange Day. Exchange Day was this mysterious one day a year where all of us who were under third grade, we didn't know what it was. We just knew there was a buzz about it. There was something about Exchange Day that got kids excited. And those that were in Miss Simmons' class who were in Exchange Day never talked about what it was. They just always came out of that day with treasures. So Exchange Day was on the mind when we all entered her room the first day of school. And to our chagrin, she never mentioned it. Nothing ever came up. If we tried to ask questions, she ignored us as if we were speaking a foreign language she didn't understand. By mid-fall, we had kind of forgotten about Exchange Day. We had got over it. We realized this is probably a joke from all the other classes, and we went on. By Christmas break, it was out of our mind. The day before, the Thursday before spring break, Miss Simmons suddenly stopped the class and she said, "Students, put your books away. We now will talk about Exchange Day." And there was just the whole class. What is this that's about to happen? We put our books away and we sat there. She said, "I'm giving you a very important assignment tonight. You are to go home and find the worst toy possible out of everything you own. You're gonna bring it back tomorrow. And remember, you're not gonna get it back. So make sure it's something you're ready to get rid of." That was the best homework assignment ever. We went home, we dug through all of our stuff. I happened to get a kind of chewed up, one-eyed, stuffing exploding out of the side teddy bear. That's what I brought to school that day. And the next day we showed up, and she asked us to put all of our toys on the front of our desks. Now, this was out of Santa's nightmares. You had melted Legos, you had one-armed G.I. Joes, you had Slinkies that were completely entangled together. It went on and on of just the junk that sat on each kid's desk. And we all kind of stared with a ugh looking at that, but no mention of Exchange Day. In fact, we went all through the morning, nothing. Miss Simmons did nothing, as if these disgusting toys weren't sitting on the front of our desk. By lunchtime, we were losing our minds. We thought this is just the cruelest thing possible. We came back, we did our lessons for the next couple of hours. And about 2 hours before the bell rang, she said, "Students, put your books away. Exchange Day will now begin." And when we had come back from lunch, all of our chairs were in a circle around a big circle table in the middle. There was obviously a pile of stuff under it because it was covered with a big black silk sheet. So we just sat there, engaged. What's going to happen? Miss Simmons took out a purple velvet bag, and we all picked numbers out of the bag. And for the next 2 hours, as your number was called, you came up to this table. Now, Miss Simmons came up, and with a very dramatic swoosh, she removed the sheet, and there was a pile of treasure that was unbelievable. See, what she had done is, for the whole school year, she had gone to garage sales and antique stores, and she had amassed, for us third graders, what amounted to the best treasure in the world. There were bags of marbles. There were dolls with beautiful dresses. There was a huge conch shell. There was a pocket knife and a tea set and silver cups. And you can just imagine everything a kid would look at as treasure was there. And right in the middle of this pile, kind of piled up on the very top, was what I had my eye on, which was an Eiffel Tower candle. It was about 14 inches tall. It was gilded in silver. And there was something so foreign about it, it's what I wanted. So when the first kid got up and started walking around the table to take as long as she wanted, she found a string of pearls, fake pearls that she wanted. So she took her broken Easy Bake Oven, put it down on the table, took her string of pearls, and went back to her seat. My friend Ronald was the next guy up. He was lucky number 2, and he went right for that pocket knife. And you could hear the boys in the class just, I mean, it was the 70s, so we could still give away pocket knives in the 70s. But Ronald came back and just stared at that pocket knife. Other boys are distraught, and this just kept happening. And what kids learned is if you go up to the table and you kind of knew what other kids wanted, you hovered around it just to give them a bit of a heart attack before you honed in on what you wanted. Finally, it was my turn. I walked up to the table. I knew the things other kids wanted that were coming after me, so I would fake grab for it just to watch their faces panic. But ultimately, I ended up right in the middle, and I grabbed that candle and I put my teddy bear right on top of the pile and went back to my seat. When it finally ended, we all had treasures sitting on our desk instead of the junk that was there before. And Miss Simmons got up and she said, "Class, I do exchange day to teach you probably the most important lesson you'll ever learn." Now, my 3rd grade brain, my little 9-year-old brain retained this. She said, "You're gonna go through things in life that are gonna be really hard, and they're gonna get hard as you get older. But you have a gift. You have the gift of exchange. You can take things that look horrible and exchange them for things that are wonderful. You have to make those choices in life. What will you exchange that is broken for what is beautiful?" Pack up your bags, and that was it. We left. And that stuck with me. That candle sat on every place I moved on the windowsill till I was about 14 years old, when the sun finally kind of melted it down into like a very sad question mark. But every time I looked at that candle, it reminded me about exchanging a mere existence for one that's filled with wonder. So I have a question for you. Is God constantly inviting us into a more extraordinary story? Is God calling us to exchange existence with a life full of wonder? I mean, what was Jesus' primary mission? Was it not to invite people onto a pathway of eternal life, something different, a life different than just existence? Grace Church, I am so happy to be with you today. My friend Aaron invited me to come. Now, Aaron's one of those friends that I've had for so long that we both can't remember where it started. It's like it's always been there. But we've walked through some stuff together. And I know he's been working you through the book of Micah. Now, Micah is as you know, the name of the series is Doom or Deliverance. Micah's a really tough book to read because when you read up to about chapter 6, Israel is just facing doom after doom after doom. It's just Israel is staring into a chasm, and you wonder, how are they going to get out of this? Now we know, because we know the story, that our God is a God of deliverance. So we know that's coming, but up to this point, they're just staring into doom. So I want to tell you a couple of stories this morning. I love this. Jesus, I think a lot of people think of him as a theologian. He was really a God who told stories. that we get our theology out of. So I want to tell you some stories, but I want to talk a little bit about grace before I get into a really important story. See, grace has an ethos of pilgrimage or of joining faith as a journey as opposed to just sitting still. The stories I've heard and what I know and what I've talked to Aaron about, this church has created a really engaging and compelling view of a faith journey. Faith, we know, can be stagnant. Faith is supposed to be constantly moving forward. If you go out to the desert and you find a place where there's fresh flowing water, that water is typically okay. But there's so many places where that water becomes stagnant. And when that water sits still, when that water doesn't move, it can go from stagnant to poisonous. And it's very similar with our faith. If we don't have a source of living water coming up within us, we can grow stagnant with our traditions where they become routine. Our words don't match our actions. We can use faith words, but they don't match what we do. Our worship becomes loveless. And there's so many things that causes this to happen. Busyness, disengagement, entitlement, oversaturation. All those things can lead to stagnation, to no movement. So how do we keep faith alive? How do we retain a faith that moves us, that we grow in, a faith that loves? Can a broken faith, because you may be sitting here today, we all go through these seasons where our faith has stagnated. We go through seasons where it could have even become poisonous. Where are you at today? Can our broken faith, if we're sitting here, if there's times where I have broken faith, can it be exchanged for a better story? Can a doomed story be exchanged for one of deliverance? So I've worked many years on a book that I'm going to be speaking on this weekend called Into the Wonder. And I want to talk to you about wonder. See, I believe the barometer of where your faith is how you engage with wonder. I want to read you just a quote out of the book. As long as I can remember, wonder has been the North Star guiding my steps and steadying my soul. Wonder is the lens that brings clarity and color to what might otherwise be a monochrome existence. I define wonder as those indescribable moments when I've experienced something joyful just beyond the veil of my physical reality. A glimpse of wonder causes potent longings to erupt in the deepest part of our soul. Wonder makes us long for something beyond this earth, beyond our grasp, beyond our hopes, beyond our faith, beyond our reason, and beyond our imagination. Wonder reflects in an indescribable source that we will one day meet face to face. Wonder is the term I use for these moments of Jesus' love that shines through into our lives all the time. All the time. We have these opportunities. We have a God that's constantly crying out to us, I love you. I love you, through all different ways. The barometer of faith is wonder. So are our hearts open to wonder? When I was thinking through this, kind of where you guys were at with Micah, I realized there's a psalm that's one of my favorites, but this psalm is completely about a man, a beloved hero in the Bible who was staring down the chasm of doom. And it's Psalm 51. In a minute here, I'm going to read kind of my favorite part of this. But Psalm 51, and I encourage you after this to sit down or to even pause this and read all of Psalm 51. But a little bit of background here, context. This is a sung poem by King David. So at this point, when David writes this, Israel is the superpower of the world. Israel of the known world in that place. David is king extraordinaire. Remember, David is known as the man after God's own heart. He's the fearless shepherd boy that fought the giant and killed the giant. He was anointed the king of Israel. He wrote a hefty portion of the Psalms. But at this point in David's life, something has gone extremely wrong. Something has taken a turn that has caused his faith, the man who is known as the man after God's own heart, into a place of stagnation and poisonous. See, David had grown soul hardened. He'd grown prideful in his victories. He'd grown complacent in his heavy responsibilities as a shepherd of Israel. And in that time, he turned away from God. In a sense, he almost went into boredom. He did not go out to battle anymore. He stayed within his palace. He started having wandering eyes, and his heart was growing hardened. It came to a place that, you know the story, that his entitlement led to not only adultery, but murder of a faithful soldier who was the husband of the woman he had adultery with. David is sitting at such a dangerous place. And he's not listening to anybody. And one day he is confronted by Nathan. Nathan is not only the prophet of Israel at the time, but David's best friend. And Nathan tells a parable. I won't go into all the details of the parable, but he tells a parable that enrages David, and then suddenly David realizes, oh, that parable's about him. It's about the condition of his heart. And in one fell swoop, David is suddenly terrified because he realizes he's standing on the edge of doom. He just hadn't seen it. His heart had grown that hard. He had been standing on the edge of doom, but suddenly his eyes are opened. David's actions had brought judgment not only on his household, but the whole kingdom. Doom is there, not just for David, but for everyone. David is wrecked because Nathan's truth, Nathan speaking that truth, God opening his heart was once again made naked and raw, tender. So David entered a time of mourning. And he went back to being the David who he was when he was that small boy saying he could take down the giant. He got the faith of a child again, and he sought the face of God that he had forgotten and ignored. So here's where we come to Psalm 51. This is the poem or the song that was birthed out of David's eyes being opened, David's heart being open to standing on the edge of doom. And I want to read this. I love this kind of in the poetic Hebrew. And it's something for all of us who stand at the edge of doom. These verses, 10 through 12, fall right in the dead center of the psalm, and it anchors all the surrounding words. David's a broken man here. Lord, take the raw materials of my life and create something new. An uncontaminated heart, a spirit established exactly where it should be. I don't want to wander from your presence, nor lose the embrace of your spirit. I long for your transcendent joy and liberty that flows from knowing you. Embrace me with your generous, willing, and loving spirit. Let's go through it one more time. Just think about this. Days before, David had stood with a hardened heart, a heart heading for doom. And in the hard words of Nathan, his heart opened up to a place of deliverance. Again, think of these words of where we're at. Lord, take the raw materials of my life and create something new. an uncontaminated heart, a spirit established exactly where it should be. I don't want to wander from your presence or lose the embrace of your spirit. I long for your transcendent joy and the liberty that flows from knowing you. Embrace me with your generous, willing, and loving spirit. Such a turnaround. Doom and suddenly deliverance. Suddenly there's deliverance. See, David, in that time where Nathan confronts him, I love this. I never thought about this until I read a passage from author Jonathan Merritt. But David had become, in that moment, disillusioned. We usually think about disillusion meaning, we're looking at something the wrong way. But let's literally look at the word, disillusioned. This is what Jonathan Merritt writes about this gift from the Holy Spirit. Disillusionment is the loss of an illusion. It's what happens when you take a lie about the world, about yourself, about those you love, about God, and replace it with the truth. Disillusionment occurs when God shatters our fantasies, tears down our idols, and dismantles our cardboard cutouts. It's the result of discovering that God does not conform to our expectations, but rather exists as a mystery beyond those expectations. Do we need to be a bit disillusioned to understand if we're standing on the edge of doom? I know when I walk in those places, when my faith stagnates, when I get to those places, I often need a miracle. I need God to shake me. And that often happens through people who love me or through something I'm reading. But the Holy Spirit is constantly looking to shake us with these moments of wonder, to bring us back, to be disillusioned so that we're not living in a false fantasy anymore, but in a world that is filled with God's love. Do we need to be disillusioned by wonder? See, disillusionment will lead to deliverance. So I want to tell you a story that's very precious to me. When years ago, when I first started Wonder Voyage, I guess I haven't explained, Wonder Voyage is an organization that I run, and I lead pilgrimages and mission trips around the world. I've done it for about 25 years. When we started, I had a home office. We lived out in the country, and my favorite time of the weekday was 3:53. That's when the bus came to the top of our gravel driveway, and my daughter came home from school. My oldest daughter, Chaylee, was the first one home. And so I always knew when she would come down that driveway with a backpack, that girl never carried any weight except for the books on her back that she was carrying from school. And she would come down the driveway and get a snack in the kitchen and come and talk with me for a few minutes. And she was sunshine. She brought sunshine to me every day. She had a particular theory about dating that I loved as a father. She had quickly determined in junior high and early high school that she did not want to date. And the way she would sit down with me and be very logical and say, Dad, why get my heart all entangled with a relationship we know it's not gonna last past high school. We know it's not gonna happen. So why put myself into that? I'm not gonna date. And that was awesome. As a dad, that's like, oh, okay, that takes a lot of pressure off of me at that point. But there was one day a year that I knew this would be a problem. That was Valentine's Day. So that February 14th, that Valentine's Day in particular, was a day I was a little more tense when she got off the bus. And sure enough, as she got off the bus, I saw her head hanging low. She didn't have the same pep as she normally had. I was so afraid that she would go to school that day and there would be all the romance and kids giving candies and flowers out and everyone just giving their love to each other, cards and all that, and that she would feel left out in all of that. She came in, and as she opened the door, I said, "Hey, Bear." And I heard nothing, not a sound, except for her big backpack hitting the floor. I heard her go into the kitchen as she normally does and mess around for a snack. And I just sat there at my desk going, okay, be cool, Dad. Don't pressure her. Wait for her to come to you. She'll talk. Just don't make this a big deal. All the parent things we say with young teenagers. I heard her after a few minutes come walking in behind me. So I kept working at my computer. She walked up behind me and she dropped like this balloon string with a pink paper heart on it over my neck. And I go, what's this? And she said, oh, it's just something dumb we do in school every year. It's like a pep rally thing. I said, well, explain. She goes, every kid that walks into school at Flower Mound High School is given one of these ribbons with a heart on it. And you have to give it away to the person who you want to be your Valentine. And we're not allowed to talk until all the hearts are given out. She goes, it's like the teachers love it. It's the quietest morning of all the school year. Nobody talks until they give a heart away. She goes, by about lunchtime, they've either given their heart away to the person that they want to, or they just want to talk again, so they're just giving it to anybody. And she goes, we do a pep rally at the end of the day, and the guy and the girl who have the most hearts, they win these prizes. I said, oh, okay, that's cool. So what's this? She said, well, Dad, I haven't talked all day. Because until the day that God brings someone in my life, you're the one that has my heart. And she gave me a kiss on the cheek and she ran out of the room. And I sat there stunned. She made a big mistake because she could have said, can we go car shopping? And I would have bought her whatever she wanted at that moment, no problem. But as she left and I just sat there staring down at this pink paper heart, I was caught in a moment of wonder. Because there's nothing more that a parent wants than the heart of their child. Like there's nothing more important. Nothing compares to your child giving their heart to you. Nothing compares to David saying, take this heart, Lord, and give me a new heart. To gain a new heart, a heart of stone, turning it into a heart of flesh, Ezekiel's promise out of Ezekiel 36:26 is one of exchange. The promise is literally, give me your stony heart. Give me your heart that's headed for doom, and I will freely give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. What an amazing promise. We just saw that in Psalm 51. A heart of stone becoming a heart of flesh. A doomed heart turned over to Jesus, no matter the circumstance, has a pathway to deliverance. Even if the circumstances don't change. Even if the hard thing you're going through doesn't change, you actually can be a person that lives in deliverance, because freedom is bigger than the trial. It's about having an eternal perspective. It's about understanding his presence with us. It's about having a heart of deliverance instead of a heart heading towards doom. Deliverance is all about exchange, and we know Jesus made that exchange. So, as you spent a few minutes with me this morning, and I want to thank you for doing that, I want you to ask yourself, how sensitive am I right now to hearing God speak to me through the multitude of ways where God's saying, I love you? Are you at a place, as I can often be at, where I need to stop, take a breather, and turn my heart over to the Spirit? I want to pray this prayer that Brennan Manning used to pray in the book Ragamuffin Gospel, and it's one that I often pray in my life. If wonder is the barometer of faith, if wonder tells us kind of where our heart's at, it's a good thing to pray for God to infuse us with wonder. So let me pray for you as we end this time. Dear Lord, grant to us the grace of wonder. Surprise us, amaze us, awe us in every crevice of your universe. Delight us to see how your Christ plays in 10,000 places. Each day enrapture us with your marvelous wonder. We do not ask to see the reason of it all. We ask to share the wonder of it all. May your heart find a place of deliverance, and may stony hearts turn to flesh. Amen.